Okay, I think it's good now.
Okay, let's go. Remember 2 p.m. hard stop for me.
Guys, I think we're live. Okay. Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Burning Question series by Fantasy Football Scout. In this series, Pras and I, Sonaldo, talk about the key hot topics for the week. I think we had some technical issues, but I do believe we're back live. Pras, is the YouTube good?
Yeah, I think I see us. So yeah, we're all good.
Okay.
I don't know what was heard before, but we ignore all of this and move on.
2 p.m. hard stop. I think they might have heard. So, obviously, we've had a lot of work in our real lives, so should be a fun episode again. Again, today's episode is about double game week 36, the one that we've been looking forward to for a while. A lot of bench boosters. I think 40% still yet to play the bench boost in the top 10K. So a scary week for us non-bench boosters. There's some free hits flying around, and then some late wildcarders with solid teams as well. So a lot to digest for this game week. Today's agenda will sort of cover team-by-team analysis for all the teams that are doubling. I do believe there's about 11 to 12 teams doubling. We're going to tackle the key burning questions ahead of Game Week 36, talk about some forwards to target for bench boosters, and then have a couple of free hit drafts. And the idea of the free hit drafts is not only for those free hitting, but also, help sort of see what the template might be for players without chips and for transfer strategies as well. The Champions League plus all this rotation, injuries, and now our defensive line is also very confusing because there might be a lot of rotation and risk here and there. So a lot of single game week players will probably end up playing or be into our teams, which is also fine because there's plenty of good players there as well. So exciting episode. Pras, how are you doing?
I'm okay, man. Doing okay. I had a okay game week, but unlike yourself, who has suddenly jumped from the where were you, 20K to what, closer to where are you now? 7K, right? Mm-hmm. So good. You must be feeling very nice.
I learned a lesson this week is when you have a bad game week, don't complain on Twitter because it's never a good look. And of course, I was very happy and excited about my score this week. So lesson learned. There's going to be bad weeks.
What was sweeter, the Brownhill 10-pointer or the Sun Captain? What was sweeter?
I think the Brownhill I'm not so proud of. I try to keep it under the radar. I'm very proud of it, right? I think in the sense that once in a while you get extremely lucky with this type of stuff, but the Sun captaincy ended up working well. But even that, if you remember, the streets won't forget from last week. So,
we'll keep it quiet. Now that the real Sun is on Twitter, we'll keep it quiet. Actually, but no, look, I think this is what the game week's about, right? This is what FPL is about. You get the highs. The lows really suck sometimes, and when it happens consecutively, it really gets you down. But then, when you think about this season, 3 years from now, you'll think about this game week, not the one where Martinelli was benched or, some silly things like that. It's more the highs, and that's why we play. So I was really happy for you.
No, I really appreciate it, Pras. And actually, on that note, the most proud player of this game week was Richarlison, because I remember speaking to you about Richarlison before bringing him onto my team, and the idea was to, sacrifice this tough game week versus Chelsea, but I do want him for 36, so it was a move that I did in advance. And shout out to you, Pras, because I think it was around game week 16 or 15, you were preaching on Bowen before anybody was talking about Bowen. And I remember taking Bowen in a week against Chelsea as well. And he got a 10-pointer. And then the following week, everyone hopped on him. So that was one thing that really kind of stays in my mind this season. And this Richarlison one is another one that I feel very happy moving forward with. We'll see how he ends up being, but cool.
Yeah, nice. Okay, look, let's get into the episode. So what we'll do is we've got the Lego Mane chart, which is essentially talking about this week in particular. So what we'll do is we'll talk about the 12 teams that double, and we'll take them one by one. I'm going to ask you some burning questions about them. Some of the people on the chat can ask some burning questions about them, and let's just discuss each one of them because some of them are important for bench boosters like Watford. Some of them are important for people on free hit like City, maybe even for everyone else. Some have rotation issues, like Robertson from Liverpool, or what happens with Leicester. So let's go to each one of these teams. And this chart is a good starting point from Lego Mane, because it gives you an overview of basically the teams that are doubling, the good teams that are doubling. So I liked it because myself, I think you as well, is free hitting in 37. It gives you a good window into which are the players that you target in 36, which you can also have in 38, ignoring 37. And it also tells you that the players you will be able to get on a free hit in 37, you can probably ignore. And something like an Aston Villa fits into that bill. Like, if they're playing Man City and Liverpool in the next 5, you would maybe be okay with them. But if they're playing Liverpool and Man City in the next 3, assuming you're free hitting in 37, you wouldn't even touch them. So that's basically the idea of this chart, where you get to see essentially the players that you can target that you will have in 36 and 38. So shall we get right to it and take it team by team?
Yes, let's do it. Is my volume okay, Pras?
It's okay for me.
Okay, let's do it.
Am I typically always loud as usual? Shall I sit back?
Your voice is lovely.
Okay, yeah. Great. All right, let's do it. Let's start with Leicester. So this is in no particular order. No, actually, it is in an order. This is ordered by the easiness of the double, as the fixture ticker for FF Scout has made. So the Scout ticker says Leicester's double game week is the best, pretty much correctly, because they play Everton at home and Norwich at home. So I guess the burning questions for Leicester Asset, there's one simple one, which is, they will have rotation. They're playing on Thursday, the Conference League. It's on the knife edge in terms of the tie. We don't know if they go through or not. But one important thing to remember is after this, there is no Europe, because the final, even if they make the final, that is after game week 38. So it'll be the midweek after game week 38. So from now, this game week until the end, there is no particular midweek that they have to focus on. It'll just be the doubles that come. So my question to you is, let's assume that Leicester is out of the Conference League on Thursday. Do the Leicester players become more interesting given that they have the best double of the game week?
I think so. I think it's so hard to actually get the right call on this, because they are essentially on the beach. They're not really playing for anything. So, does Brendan Rodgers play for pride? Maybe. Does he, field his best starting 11? Maybe. Does he, give chances to players that he's looking at for next season? Maybe as well, right? So it's really tough. I know a lot of people are looking at Maddison as an option, but he's a no option for me. I think if you follow the actual injury update of Maddison, he has like a hip injury right now. So that's already a red flag for me, and possibly maybe 1 out of 2 games. But you're high risking if you're thinking he's going to play both games. So especially if they're still in the European tie, then for sure I'm not interested in Leicester Assets for now.
So okay, if they are in the tie, then I agree with you. But now we're talking the scenario that they're out.
Okay.
So if they are out, I actually think Maddison wouldn't be that bad. I mean, I'm talking mainly to people who don't have a free hit. So Ted and FPL Inzaghi, they in the TED Talks, I was actually listening to them earlier this morning, and they made a point that if you're not on a free hit, and even if you assume that Maddison's going to play 1 game this game week, right, you're still getting him like a Coutinho type option, where you get him for 1 easy game this game week in 36, and then you get him for the double in 37. So assuming that Leicester are out, and if you are a believer that Leicester will still have something to play with, because there's an equal chance that they just basically check out for the season, right? They say, we're out of Europe, we have nothing to play for, we're done. That's a scenario that's possible. But given that we're talking about Leicester, I don't think it's that crazy to go for a Maddison if you don't have a free hit in 37. And, it also stems from the fact that there's suddenly not many midfielders that we're picking from. So when we get to our drafts, we'll see that a lot of, I really believe that the double City mid is a better free hit draft, or even a Mane is fitting into free hit drafts, because midfielders have suddenly disappeared. Nobody from Liverpool other than Salah. We have nobody from Chelsea anymore. We have, Son, obviously, from Spurs, but Kulusevski, we'll talk about Spurs in more detail, but we've essentially lost a lot of mids. So I don't think going for a Maddison, if they're out of Europe, is such a bad shout. Obviously, injury update, TBD. Mm. Anyone else from Leicester that you think is viable here? Again, we're assuming they're out of Europe.
Keeper Schmeichel. especially on the free hit. I think he's the best choice for this game week. So that's about it for me. I don't think I would go to Barnes. He's so rotation risk right now, and you don't want to be carrying that burden. Plus, Barnes is it's hard to predict when he's going to haul, even if he hauls maybe one goal, right? So it's like, I just don't trust him as an asset at all. I mean, the strikers, right? You're looking for a striker option. Maybe you go there, but who do you go for? I have no idea. So I don't think I don't see any option in Leicester except Schmeichel as a great option. Maddison as a decent option, but again, for me, the rotation risk is too big for me to go there. I'd rather take one less game and go for like a Kulusevski over Maddison.
Fair. Okay, so we ended with Maddison, maybe Schmeichel, definitely, and I think most free hitters will go for Schmeichel. I would add one more name in there, which is Fofana. Now, a lot of people think that he could be the one that plays 3 out of the next 4. So basically, you get 1 double out of him and one additional game. And the best thing is he's really cheap. So people are looking for a downgrade. I had a few questions on the tweet for the burning questions on which are the mids to target under 4.5. I think he's one of the 3 I would think that are an option for this double game week. So that's on Leicester. Right, so moving from one exciting team to another very exciting team, which is Watford. Now, bear with us, guys. We'll come to Liverpool, Man City, and others, but we're just taking it in the order of the fixture difficulty. So Watford apparently have the second best double of this double game week. They play Crystal Palace away and Everton at home. What do you think? I mean, when I look at the fixture, yes, it's the second easiest in the double game week 36, but Crystal Palace... So Crystal Palace at home are a very, very good team. So for Watford, for me, that should be a orangish red for Watford. And then Watford themselves are very bad at home. So it's a better fixture for Everton to be away to Watford than Watford being home to Everton. That's where I come with it. And ultimately, look, if you're on bench boost, look at Watford. If you're not, don't even think about them. But what else do you think? Watford options?
Bench boost, yes, they could be a viable bench boost option because you have Foster as a cheap second keeper, or I don't know, maybe you could go for Dennis as or Cucho, right? But we're going to get to team defensive stats as you presented, Pras, and if you look at it, both in attacking in the last 10 plus defensive in the last 10, they're right at the bottom. And do you trust any Watford asset? Definitely not. So not interested in any Watford assets besides if you're on a bench boost. But even if you're on a bench boost, you should already have them in your team, right? You don't want to be moving for them.
You could. Maybe you're at that last spot where now you have a Weghorst and you're looking for one enabler. So for a striker, or I have another burning question. Let's say a lot of people have Ramsdale and Foster, and they're really, really upset by how Arsenal has been defending more recently. Would you play Foster over Ramsdale?
No, I wouldn't.
I wouldn't either.
Yeah, they're going to get scored on in both games. Pras, I think you should put your mic a little further, if possible.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll try to speak a little closer. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, cool.
Right. So, so I think we both agree. If you have Foster, play him as your double game week keeper. If you have Dennis, I think he's fine. He's a fine option for the double. He could get you a return over the 2. So I think as a bench booster, that's fine. I don't think there's anybody else who's that viable from Watford. So we can move on unless you have anything.
Sorry, Cucho is out for the season. Thanks, guys, for reminding me. That's how irrelevant they are to us in FPL terms. So
this is why Pedro may be an option.
Okay, got you.
Okay, next team is Everton. So Everton a little bit more exciting. They've got the third best double game week. They are both away. So Everton play Leicester away and Watford away. Now, as I mentioned, Watford away is a good fixture because Watford haven't had, they're terrible at home. And then Leicester away gets even more interesting if Leicester are still in the Conference League. So for me, Richarlison is a much better option if Leicester are basically win on Thursday. So this is why I think what's happening in these midweek European games has massive implications on what kind of players we pick. I think they'll just, you may get a very rotated team again because they would have played on a Thursday and Brendan Rodgers doesn't want to risk injury. So you get a rotated team on the weekend that you play, and then you play Watford away, which is anyway a good fixture. So I think Everton, both Gordon and Richarlison, good options. Anyone else?
I really like Gordon. I think he's a good option, especially if they're attacking and on the counter. And he's basically an attacker. So I think Gordon is probably the best enabler option this game week in terms of price point. I think Richarlison's really good too. Great double game week 36, another double in 37, and I think a solid fixture in 38 as well. From what I remember, maybe not. Maybe it was Arsenal, but. Regardless, he's been scoring. He's been consistently scoring. And this last game, I thought Everton was pretty damn solid against Chelsea. And I think Richarlison could have gotten one more goal. I remember a moment where he had a very good, maybe not a big chance, but a good chance to get another goal. So I like Richarlison as an option. You bring him in, you have to have the caveat that he might throw a smoke bomb and get suspended, and he's got that type of flair about him. So proceed with caution. But as an owner, I'm very happy moving into 36 with him, and I think you'll see him in a lot of free hit teams this game week as well.
Possibly, unless Jesus sits out the midweek game tonight. But I don't disagree. I think he's a good option. There is this thing, as pointed out by FPL A+, which is they're supposed to hear back from this flare throw. I think it should be okay.
It's already been confirmed, from what I know.
Has it been? Okay.
Yeah, it's just a fine and warning.
Okay, and the whole injury thing was just a cramp. So I think he's good to go. Obviously, look out for press conferences, but. We have why don't we flip to it? We have a table on attackers. We'll do a little bit of flipping on data tables, by the way, just to make some points on certain teams. So I don't know, Andy, if you can go to that table on XGI for all attackers. So this is everyone under 7.5 million over the last 10 game weeks. And this was basically also to help you bench boosters who are looking for that third attacker, a second attacker. So what we see here is obviously Tony is up top. I think we can, for the moment, ignore Tony, given that he doesn't double. He doesn't have a double after that as well. Pukki is second, Richarlison third, Watkins. These are not great names, but these XGIs are actually not bad. I mean, a XGI of 6 over 10 games is not that bad at all. So I think both Pukki and Richarlison are decent options. The issue with Pukki obviously being that they're relegated. What happens after that? Sometimes relegated teams start playing youngsters. Sometimes the motivation completely falls off the cliff. So we have to see how Norwich goes. So I think Pukki becomes a little bit of a risk. But after that, you have Richarlison. So 5 goals and assists in the last 10 game weeks. That's perfect for somebody who's 7.5 million. So,
Pras, sorry to interrupt, but this is why we love having these live chats. And last week, the live chat was excellent. Philip, thanks for mentioning this. Richarlison has sustained a lower leg injury, and Ben Dinnery says he has a 50-50 chance of being involved. So definitely news to watch out for. Do you know anything about this, Pras?
I heard that it's just a cramp. That's the last I heard this morning.
Okay.
So we watch out for it, but assuming he's fit, I think he's a good option.
Okay, gotcha.
All right, let's flip back on Everton. So anyone in defense for Everton? Pickford. Some people have Pickford on bench boost. I think it's fine. Some people have Holgate. So Holgate, I had mentioned budget enablers under 4.5. So Fofana was one. I think Holgate is another one. Should get some minutes, but you don't really want to be backing these defenses. If you have them on a bench boost, fair enough. But people who are not on a bench boost, you don't need to go there. You don't need to play them. If they're enabling someone else and you're desperate for it, fine. So I think Holgate would get a mention, but otherwise, let's move on.
Let's move on.
All right, Man City. Man City is the team to talk about this week. And look, I mean, one thing I have to say up front is we would love to do this stream after the Man City game tonight, right? We have a schedule that we keep up with, and we do these streams on Wednesdays because of work commitments, because of scouts, other scheduling. I would love to speak tomorrow on City Assets because there is so much depending on what team is put out tonight. So there's going to be a little bit of if then, but I think with City, it's worth having that discussion so that people have our views before the game. So defense, I think everybody knows Cancelo is probably the outstanding option. A lot of people have shown more recent data where his numbers have not been as high as a Trent or a Robertson or a James when he's on fire. But look, it's still a double game week. If you have him or if you have the option to go for him, he would be the number one pick. In fact, in the whole team. I would still stand by that. I think if you had to have one City asset, for me, that would be Cancelo. If you had to have a second defender, that would be Laporte. Diaz is starting to come back, but you have to watch out for Stones' injury update. I think before the Champions League, he's still injured. So regardless, I think Laporte will play both games. So if you wanted to go somebody safe with lower upside than Cancelo, I think Laporte works. And then obviously staying in defense, if you have a way to get Edison or have Edison, that's a steady Eddie 6-pointer as well. So I think there's nothing wrong with going for City defenders. They should probably keep both clean sheets because they play Wolves and Newcastle. Both are okay. If Newcastle was an away game, I would have said maybe it's trickier, but Newcastle away at the Etihad, I think you back Man City for a 2-3 goals to nil. You back Man City definitely against Wolves and definitely to keep a clean sheet. So if you want that limited ceiling, go for double defense. But if you're one of the dreamers, if you're on a free hit, if you have the option, I really like going for the attacker. So I'll let you comment, Andy, on what you think about their attackers and which are the ones to go for.
First things first, do you think that Diaz is just as nailed as Laporte moving forward, or Diaz is more nailed or less nailed than Laporte?
It's the fact that he's come back from injury, which makes it a slight risk. Basically he gets a recurrence or he feels something and he's rested for a whole game. That's the risk you take in a double game week, because you're essentially backing the guy to play the second game without knowing what happens in the first game. So for me, Laporte will play. He's been fine. He's been the one who's actually taken off slightly earlier. It feels like he's more essential this season. And Diaz is somebody who's important, but he could miss out if Ake is back. We don't know about Ake, by the way. He was also somebody who got injured over the weekend. So I didn't mention Zinchenko. Actually, Zinchenko could be an option in defense too, if Ake remains out. And I heard that Walker is on his way back, so we'll have to see where that goes. But if Walker is out and confirmed on Friday, then I think Zinchenko could be an option. But I am hearing that Walker could be back by then.
Yeah, I would love for Walker to come back, because if Walker comes back, that puts Cancelo in his the best spot, which is the left side, and where he's most dangerous. And I think we did a couple weeks ago did an episode where Cancelo's role completely changes from the left. He becomes way more involved. If you look at their zonal attacks, when he goes to the left, they attack way more from the left, and Walker pretty much becomes a third center back at times. So I really wish Walker comes back. And if he does come back, Zinchenko is a no option for me. So there's a lot of things that you have to consider about Man City, right? Because I get it, right? On a free hit, you want to have a little bit more upside. You want to go for the two mids or possibly even Jesus. Definitely an option if he, for example, doesn't play in the Champions League game. But it's hard to ignore the fact that a double City defense is, yes, lower ceiling, but very, very high opportunity of getting an X amount of points for sure. You just have that clean sheet blanket in there, because they're the best defensive team in the league, and they have two great fixtures coming up. So I still think what's the right term to say this? I think you know what I'm going to say, but the pragmatic approach is to have two defenders from City, and the more the fun approach would be to have maybe Cancelo plus two midfield options, KDB Foden, or Foden Jesus or something like that. So that's where I'm at. I think Cancelo's number one. I like Laporte, but I don't think Diaz is a bad option. I think Diaz does get both games, and it looks like he's going to move forward. Pep's going to move forward with Laporte and Diaz as the two main center backs, because every time Stones comes back, he's shifted to the right, and Laporte's not making way for him to come back into the team. And, just one thing outside of FPL is this is how good the City team is. Do you remember maybe like early last season or something where Laporte couldn't find a way into the team? It was Diaz and Stones in that center back position. And look at it now. Diaz and Stones are second and third, Ake fourth string to Laporte. And so it just goes to show how good these guys are in the City defensive lineup. Yeah.
Yeah, they're coached well, and I agree with you. The pragmatic approach is double City defense, but I am going to implore to the people on free hit that look elsewhere, look for double attack. This is the team that scores the most goals. And if Laporte was a Robertson, with the similar attacking threat, you're basically a Cancelo. City don't play that way, where like Liverpool, where both the wing backs come forward. City usually generally Cancelo goes up and the other three kind of sit back. So they don't really have that attacking wing back. So then why? I mean, this is the best team in the league playing a double game week. You have an option to go for people with high ceilings. This is where I think that, we'll have a debate with Chelsea players, right? Do I want James to play one game versus Laporte to play twice? I actually think James play one game is not the end of the world. I know people who are newish James owners don't agree with me, but he doesn't have that much upside. So let's come to the attackers. The attackers for me merits a serious debate because not a lot of people have attackers. Some have Foden, some have Sterling, but pretty much very few have KDB. Even fewer have Jesus, Mahrez. So there's lots of options. And for me, it really comes down to minutes on how they play. So I did an article for the Scout on Monday, which was basically talking about what happens if certain lineups come in. So for example, Jesus has played the last 3 games. If he plays again tonight, that would be 4 in a row. Are you backing him to play 6 in a row? Basically, the next 2 starts in the double. I think that would be a stretch because at some point he'll want to rest him. You're backing City to go through tonight, I'm assuming. Are you as well?
Yeah, for sure.
So I think, no disrespect to Real Madrid, but if you back City to go ahead, I don't expect anybody to get 6 starts, 7 starts in a row for City because he will want to keep the squad fresh. So that makes Jesus a less of an option. But if, for example, Pep decides to play a false 9, which he has done, we remember in the Champions League final, sometimes against Liverpool, he plays KDB, sometimes even Foden or Bernardo Silva up top as a false 9. Then you have Mahrez on one side, Sterling or Foden on one side. He's done that in the past. And then you have a Gundo KDB midfield. He's done it in the past.
Yeah, the Pep over-analysis of a final and then, switches it up like crazy. Yeah.
Correct. So, and that strategy is basically, I'm not going to give you the ball. These are all my best passes. Gundogan, Bernardo Silva, or KDB, they won't let you touch the ball. That's the idea. It's an away game. There is a chance. So if that happens, for me, Jesus is the number 1 pick in attack. I would even say he's above KDB. That's my personal view. Simply because he's playing through the middle again. He's more involved. Things can go wrong. Things went wrong with Sterling, right? So I'm not here kind of crystal gazing, but I'm saying if he would be involved, his minutes would be much more assured because there's no way that he's been taken out of the team because of anything else other than tactical reasons. So I'm thinking if I'm Pep, I'm telling Jesus, look, we have to not play in this game because this is a certain style, but you're still, firmly somebody who I appreciate. You've done really well in the last 3 games. You keep playing in the Premier League. I would love it. So that's my favorite scenario if Jesus misses out tonight. But we don't get nice things. Most likely Jesus will start, KDB will start, Foden will start, Mahrez will start. So then I guess I come to you on how would you rank their attackers?
I think as much as I would love to have KDB in my team, unless you're on a free hit, right? The amount of sacrifice you have to make in order to fund a move to KDB, I think you can get away with it with a Foden. So I actually prefer Foden over KDB, not because of a who's the better player, who's the better option. It's the value, right? Because that value can be put elsewhere into a much stronger defensive lineup. You could keep the likes of Son, maybe a different Spurs player, maybe even Kane, right? So I prefer Foden over KDB, but if I had unlimited budget and it didn't really affect the overall starting 11, then yeah, sure, go for KDB. And as you mentioned, I'm really looking at Jesus as an option, but with Richarlison in my current team and as a non-chip player in 36, there's no way to move for him. So for me, I've already set my eyes on going Mount to Foden for myself. So I think that if you had to rank these players in order, I would go Foden, KDB, and then Jesus depending on how this game goes this game week. And if you have no other striker options to go for as well. Yeah.
I agree with everything. Yep. I agree with everything you've said, but I think KDB is again double game week, right? We're not talking single game week. We're talking you get the chance to roll the dice twice. So why not with the best player in the team?
True.
So and we're coming to the end of the season, so there's a risk appetite element to it. So for example, you're happy with your rank, you're ahead in your mini league by 20 points. Go for double defense, fine, or go for a Foden, safe, because Foden will be easily more owned than KDB. If you were to look at purely ownership, I think the 3 most owned players from City will be Foden, Laporte, and Cancelo. That's just how it's going to be. because most people can't get to a KDB. Most people can't get to a Jesus that easily.
How do you get to a KDB then, Pras, besides
free hit? That's the burning question. So that's the burning question, which is, do you lose a City player to get a KDB, especially if you're free hitting in 37? So I'm talking myself personally. Some of the people think that if you lose a Spurs player, how about Burnley at home and Norwich away? Come on, these are easy fixtures in 37, 38. How can you not have them? I say to them, look, I can get a Son and Kane on my free hit in 37 if I wanted to. And if I went KDB now, I'll just go Son in 38. For people like me who are sitting on Kane and not Son, basically it also gives me a very indirect way of going Kane to Son. Now, I don't think there's much in it. I was really pained to see yet again that Kane's underlying stats were as good as Son's in the last game. They've been in the last 6 game weeks. In fact, over the last 15 game weeks, Kane has way better underlying stats than Son. But I'm willing to basically say that, look, this is the guy. Kane is getting the assists, Son is getting the goals. So if you're sitting on a Kane and you want to make that switch to Son in 37 and 38, why not go to a KDB now
first, and then Son
Kane
later?
To KDB, then you go KDB to Son. Whether you do that in 37 or 38 depends on your chip strategy. For me, it also depends on West Ham. So this is getting slightly convoluted here, where West Ham's game this on Thursday, if they win, they will play only 3 days before their final against Man City in game week 37. So I think that's going to be, heavily rotated isn't even, that would be understating it. West Ham will basically put out the kids because that final will be everything that they care about.
Yeah. This is a very unlike Pras move, by the way, getting rid of Kane before a double game week. But when we get to the Spurs section, I'm going to give you some more juice on why this move might be viable and why Son to KDB doesn't make sense, but Kane to KDB to Son might make sense moving forward.
That's where I am. If I had Son, I probably won't. Because let's think about the free hitters. We'll come to a free hit draft now. Will anyone have Kane? No. Will people have Son? Probably. Because you're looking at the matchups against Liverpool and Arsenal. Where is Kane going to stand? Kane is going to stand at the halfway line, just ahead of the halfway line. Mm-hmm. He's going to look for runs of Son. So what is Kane's upside? Kane's upside is basically getting a couple of assists. That is if they score a couple of goals against Liverpool. Mm-hmm. Do you back them to score a couple of goals against Liverpool? I don't know. Maybe one. So that's basically the dilemma that I have, that if I have Kane for the double, I don't like him. If I have Son for the double, maybe he's fine, but you are taking a big risk against effective ownership. And this is the time to look at effective ownership because we're nearly at the end. If you're sitting at 9K, don't throw your whole season on the line just because you have a feeling KDB might do better than Son.
Right.
Look at effective ownership. Don't throw your season on the line by captaining Son versus Salah if you think Salah will be 160% owned and you don't have that risk appetite. Of course, the primary decision has to be who do you think will get more points. But now I think EO comes into it in terms of decision making on where you are, if you're chasing or if you're holding.
Yep. While we're at it here, should we just do the Spurs section?
We can, but let's finish the City one for a second. Mm-hmm. So, do we agree that if Jesus sits out, do you agree that he's probably high up in priority, maybe equal to KDB? Would you, or are you more muted and think, come on, get real? It's Jesus.
I think if he's rested, Jesus becomes a serious option. I 100% agree with you here. Wow, I just said 100% like Ted. But the issue here is that if you move for a Jesus, and likely you have 2 City defenders, you're going without a City midfield. So that's my only concern here. That maybe you could do as Cancelo, Foden plus Jesus, but I would be worried not having either one of KDB or Foden in there and banking on a City striker to do well. Because sure, Jesus is getting the points right now. And for example, 34-35, Sterling missed out. But City is always a team where the points are spread. This is just a given fact. Even when I did the research in the December crunch period where they had 7 or 8 games, it's amazing how spread their points are. This season, last season, previous season, every season under Pep. So do you go into it with the thought and the hope that, yes, Jesus gets the X minutes, but does he get the points? You just never know. So that's my
roll the dice twice. Double game week. That's the only thing. If it was a single game week and we're discussing, fine, I agree. but you get to roll that Jesus 4 goals dice twice.
True.
You might get a Sterling at the end of it, or you might get that Jesus haul. You just never know, which is why, look, X minutes is important. This is why we're thinking about X minutes a lot, because what you don't want is your player plays once, gets 1 assist, and then doesn't play the second game. In that case, get somebody else who'll play twice. So I think there is a balance there. I agree with you. But look, I mean, I should quote. I see Ronald FPL Pig on the chat. He's the guy. He's the guy who's basically the KDB proponent. By the way, he's not had Salah since game week 30, and so he's basically jumped. And you see the opportunity that he's been able to create by not having Salah. He first went Ronaldo and Bruno for the doubles.
Yep.
Ronaldo got his hat trick. He was captain. Even game week 34, Ronaldo got another couple of goals. He then switched to Son last week because he had Bruno, and he went Bruno to Son, kept Ronaldo. So Ronaldo scored again this week, and he got the Son hat trick. The Son haul. You can play it in many ways, and I'm actually fascinated every time Ronald tells me what his transfers are, because it's so different, and he plays very differently. And this, without any chips, he's sort of his quest for the top 10K is ongoing.
Ronald is FPL pick, by the way, and a very, very underrated manager, excellent manager, FPL manager. So certainly, if you have questions and stuff, shoot him a DM. I'm sure he's happy to help.
He's there. He's in the chat.
Yeah, I saw him in the chat. I'm just saying, brilliant manager. And I actually, last week, this is a funny story. Last week, I went to him too because I was torn between Watkins and Richarlison. And he was forcing me to go for Watkins. And as soon as Watkins scored, he said, Andy, what do you think? And then Richarlison ended up scoring. So shout out FPL Pig here. Yeah.
Okay, so that's Man City. Anything else on Man City? I mean, we'll come back to them again when we talk about Spurs and whether it's worth it to do this switch, because that's going to be the burning question, whether you go for a KDB or not. And then the added on question, do you captain KDB over Salah or not?
No, I just think Salah captaincy is a lock for me. Yeah.
We'll come to it. Why don't you do your Spurs thing now?
You want me to do Spurs? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let me try to break this down. So the conversation we had before we got here was that if you have Kane to KDB, and then KDB to Son is a viable option. But if you have Son, I would definitely not move him on to KDB and stick with Son. And I'll try to explain why. So Son has, look, I have my biases as well, but last week I was also saying I'm not very confident and honestly for good reason. And hopefully this will explain why. Son has 19 goals and 7 assists in 31 league games, as we all know, and he's doing great. But Spurs this is even more amazing for the fact that Spurs are such a counter-attacking team. They're drastically different of a team when they're counter-attacking, a great counter-attacking team, and a really, really bad team when they have a wall to beat and try to break into a wall. And you look at the score lines here, Tottenham versus Brighton and Tottenham versus Brentford. Both Brentford and Brighton locked out Tottenham's team, and they couldn't find a way into the goal, right? And so a tie and a loss to Brighton. It was a late goal against Brighton. And then I'll show you a couple of different score lines. Tottenham versus Newcastle 5-1. Tottenham versus Aston Villa 4-0. Tottenham versus Leeds 4-0. Tottenham versus Everton 5-0. And a flood of goals happened after they broke the deadlock, usually early on. Versus Villa, there was a 3rd-minute goal by Son. Versus Leeds, there was a Doherty goal at the 10-minute mark. Versus Everton, 14-minute own goal by Kane. And versus Newcastle, 43rd minute, and then a bunch followed in the second half. And I remember this Newcastle game, it was a pretty tight affair until that 43rd minute. So the point I'm trying to make is that once they break the duck, that means the team starts to push up a little bit, the opposition team, and that allows for Conte's counter-attacking philosophy to come into the fold. And who is really good at the counter-attacking team? Son, Kane, plus Kulusevski now, who's as essential as the other two, because he's so much better of a player right now, currently, than Lucas. So in front of a wall, they'll struggle, which is why I think this Liverpool game and Arsenal game is actually perfectly suited to to Spurs. So I would proceed with caution here, right? Because you can't compare Liverpool to Newcastle and Aston Villa and Leeds and Everton. I get it. But if you watch their game and extended highlights, as Fraser mentioned on FPL Twitter, Spurs had a lot of chances against Liverpool because Liverpool are so dominant in possession and push the ball up, and they love that, right? They want that counterattacking opportunity. So I think it really bodes well for the Spurs team against both Liverpool and Arsenal, and I think it's more than just what you see on paper. So I think in this sense, Son could be a good option moving into the game week. But again, the cautionary part is, yes, if they get an early goal or they're able to unlock the first goal, then I think the chances of them possibly getting 2 or 3 goals is higher. But again, if Liverpool score the first goal, or they struggle to break down that wall, then Tottenham, you can see what happens against Brighton and Brentford. So even this game against Leicester, until the first goal, it was a pretty tight affair, and Leicester also hit the post and were having a lot of possession on the ball, and actually were controlling the game in some ways until they broke the deadlock. And Leicester actually pushed forward a lot before that first goal, versus the other games versus Brighton and Brentford, where they didn't push forward at all. So just tactically speaking, this is what I think and why I think Son could be a good option this game week.
Yeah, but you see, the thing is, we all called it. We all called the Leicester game as the game with goals. We all captained the Spurs player, a lot of us. Mm-hmm. In our last stream, we were talking about this. They didn't have any time to prepare. They rested a lot of players. That's very different to an Arteta or a Klopp who know. I mean, if you and I know, they know. So if they know that this is how Spurs play, they also know how to counter that. Now, yes, they will get chances, but it will not be a Leicester game. It will be a very different game. It may not also be an Aston Villa game. They're not going to completely sit back, but people will be conscious. If people know that this is how, we're not even talking about Spurs. We're talking about the way Conte plays. He's played like this forever. And this is, in fact, the only way he plays. So not to bring him down, he's an elite manager, but this has always been his style at Inter, at Chelsea before. Right. Mm-hmm. So these are tough games, and these are tough games against two teams that really have a lot to play. They cannot be careless. They will have. So Arsenal, I agree. There's goals in that game. Probably they get 2 or 3 goals. Fine. But then I'm also backing a KDB to score, or Man City to score 5 to 6 goals in the double game week. So yes, Son will share more part of that pie of those 3 goals, and KDB may share a smaller pie. But I just think I don't own Son right now. So for me, that's not even an option. Maybe it's an option I go Kane to Son, but I'm probably not going to do that. Then it comes down to, do I want to basically attack the City game in this double game week and then go for Son instead of Kane for the future game weeks? That's basically
I agree with you there. Like, I don't think you move for Son right now, but if you have him, it's a great option. And I think to counter your point, Pras, is that they don't need that many chances. Like, even if you look at the amount of goals Son scored this season versus Salah scored, Salah's had probably twice as many shots on target this season. They just need a couple of counterattacking chances. And who is the best at delivering these passes? Kane. He's a center defensive midfielder at times that does ridiculous long balls to Son. So look, I said again, proceed with caution because it's Liverpool, but if it becomes an open game and they get a few chances, then he's in form right now, and he could convert the low XG. So
I think Son will be in most free hit drafts. A lot of free hit drafts this week are going to come down to how do you fit KDB, Son, and Salah in one team, and then everything else around it will work around that. And you'll see that in the free hit draft that we have as well. So I think it's a great option. Spurs are fine. Even Kane is fine. But if you're looking for that push, if you wanted to change your structure, I don't think going to a KDB is that bad. You're taking a risk. Of course, you're taking a risk. I mean, Spurs are Spurs. I mean, they can do well against any team, but then City are also City. KDB is also KDB.
So you're saying you would consider going Son to KDB?
No, I wouldn't. Okay. I would leave Son in there if I had Son, but I would definitely. So I think we're agreeing here. I would say
we agree. Yep.
Kane to, but then if you're doing it for hits, Kane to KDB for a -4, if you're getting in, let's say Kane and go Ramsey to a fodder and KDB. Does that make sense? Maybe not. Maybe not for a hit. But if you're basically changing something else, maybe it makes more sense. So when we come to the free hit drafts and my particular team, because this is also something that is in particular for me, who has a Kane, but not a Son, I think we'll discuss that in more detail.
Okay, perfect.
All right, so moving on, let's go then to the next team, which is Chelsea. Chelsea, very interesting one. I think we've all talked about the fact that they have Leeds in the midweek before the FA Cup final. But something very interesting has happened. I mean, they've drawn to Manchester United. They've lost to Everton. Suddenly, I don't think it's a complete, they're home and dry. And you'd also want to finish, of course, the Champions League places, but even also finish third over fourth. So I think Chelsea have a slightly more skin in the game for the league. My thinking, holding James and Alonso, is that they play Wolves first. And Wolves, basically, if you go to our stats tables, they're the worst defense and the worst attack. Not the worst defense, but one of the bottom 5 defenses and bottom 5 attacks. What that tells me is that game is there for the taking. Chelsea are not conceding in that game. Prediction, obviously. So you're getting a clean sheet in that particular game. Let's say something wrong happens and that game goes like the Everton game went, where Chelsea completely bottle it and they lose that game. Or they draw it. Now they are even more in trouble for the top 4 race. So it's almost like a hedge that if you have a bad game against Wolves, you will get another game against Leeds. If you have a good game against Wolves, then they may not play midweek, but then you've got all these points against Wolves. If you see my logic, right? Mm-hmm. So that's my thinking with an Alonso and a James, where these are such high upside defenders. Alonso showed it in the previous game week, or the previous to previous 34. James showed it in the weeks before. So why not just have that and ride that upside and take a chance that they play twice, or just be happy with once, because there's not a lot of defenders now left that have that massive upside this week other than Trent and Cancelo because of Robertson, and we'll come to him.
Yeah, it's we're just agreeing on everything today, and I don't think I have anything more to add there. I'm perfectly happy keeping James in my team, even if he gets one start. Perfectly happy because we're chasing that 18-pointer upside. Look, it hasn't come in a while, but again, there's no real other defenders to go for except 2 City, 2 Liverpool. So if you have Alonso, if you have Laporte, I think you just keep him in there and ride it.
Plus, so then that's the burning question for me. Mm-hmm. On the defense. We'll come to the Chelsea attack in a second. On the defense, the burning question is, let's say like me, you're happy with your backline. You have double Chelsea defense, you have double Liverpool defense, and 1 Cancelo. Do you move one of them out for Laporte because of this nice safety cushion that we talked about, 2 clean sheets coming up? Or do you just say, look, I'm happy with my Chelsea defenders and Liverpool defense is fine? Again, I said we'll come to Robertson, but what's the thinking there? Why would you then go for Laporte?
That is a very good burning question. If you have double Chelsea defense, the logic would be to move on 1 for Laporte, right? First of all, sorry.
Why? I'm questioning. Why would you do that?
Okay, so I'm saying like whether it's Laporte or a different City player, Diaz maybe, right? Here's the issue: are we 100% sure Laporte's going to start both games? I don't know. Are you 100% sure Alonso is the better option over Reece James, or Reece James is the better option over Laporte or over Alonso? It's a really tricky dilemma. There's many things that can go wrong from this move. So possibly I do agree with you. You keep both Chelsea defenders and kind of ride it and hope one of them does really well and then makes up for the missed games of both of them. So I think if I had both Chelsea defenders, I'd be very hesitant to move him on for a City defender. And I just try to upgrade and get 2 City attackers, for example, or 2 City midfielders instead.
Correct. And let's not forget that Chelsea also, for the final home game of the season, play Watford at home. Now, you saw the Man United performance against Brentford. That was no coincidence. A last home game of the season pretty much means a good performance, typically. And basically, it's the last game for the home fans. You put out a decent enough team. You play the players who are the fans' favorites. Typically, all of that stuff happens. Now, you saw in the Man United lineup, I mean, you had Juan Mata starting. So some quirky things might happen like that. But I think when you're talking about a James and an Alonso, you'd back both of them to start Watford at home as well in Game Week 38. So and Leicester at home, by the way, as well in Game Week 37. So even if you're not a free hit 37, I mean, you back these two guys to play 3 out of these 4 games, and that's fine. That should be your upside. You're not really captaining them, and it's not like there's somebody else with massive upside. Laporte is a 12-point guy. Of course, I'll be proven wrong. In 2 seasons ago, the double game week, he was the hero. I think he got 19 points. So of course he could do well, but we're predicting here, and I think it's not worth the upside.
It's very interesting. Recently, Tuchel's just been playing the same team over and over too. So maybe there's some logic behind it, and trying to get his team going, and who knows, right? So that was interesting, especially this game week. We thought there was going to be heavy rotation, and there was no rotation at all. So
this is why I was in the camp of you keeping Werner. Of course, it worked out for you. But you see, the problem is if today Jesus misses out, then you've lost that option value. So I kept Havertz. I didn't want to lose the option value of going for a Foden or committing to a Foden when I actually wanted KDB and Jesus. Same thinking, where I didn't want to sell my Chelsea player yet. I want to wait, and then I will decide who is the best City player to replace him with. That was the thinking anyway.
Yeah, and on a wildcard 34, Werner was my biggest mistake, not because he didn't do well in 34. That's just an outcome. It's because that now that I had Werner and no safety striker, it basically locked me into, forced me into a move in 35, which ended up turning out well. But again, as you mentioned, now Jesus is not an option for me.
Yeah. Okay. Chelsea attackers. Anyone? Do you think anyone is worth a hold? Mount?
I think Mount, but listen, like Mount could also play every game, or could play maybe 1 or 2 games in the final. I think 3 or 4 game weeks, or 3 game weeks. So it's very risky. I think keeping Mount, unless you really believe he's undroppable from that Chelsea squad.
I think most Chelsea fans that I've spoken to think Mount might play both games. He'll definitely get the most minutes out of the guys. So I think for me, I agree with you. Mount maybe keep. It's more of a luxury move if you can get to somebody, maybe not worth a hit. Havertz and Werner can get the hell out of my team, or mine and your team. I think there's enough rotation risk there with Lukaku, Pulisic, that it's not worth it. You have much better options, and they're decently priced as well, right? I mean, and Alonso you keep, he's 5.5. Where else are you going with 5.5? With Havertz, you have a Foden. With Werner, you have a Jesus or a Richarlison. So there's options there. So I don't think it's worth keeping.
Bernardo with a great question. I have a burning question. Would you move Havertz Mount to a Man City mid for a hit? I'm assuming Foden.
I think I would. I just about would. Again, depends on Foden's minutes. Today, if he plays 90 minutes, looks a bit knackered. Different answer. But absent all of that, and I think if you believe Foden plays twice, I think in isolation, I think Foden will play twice. Then yeah, probably worth it.
Yeah, I agree. That's the only risk you carry. Does he play twice?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Next team. By the way, Mendy we didn't talk about. Mendy might play twice, won't he? Have any free hitters gone for Mendy? Have you seen?
I mean, very likely he plays twice, but Kepa could come in randomly because, again, what are they playing for this season?
Maybe. Plus, Schmeichel's fixtures are so good that you maybe don't go there.
Oh, yeah. On a free hit, Schmeichel's the no-brainer pick for me.
Right. Okay. Norwich. I think we talked about Pukki, right? It's only Pukki that you look at from Norwich, and even then, if you hold him, if you're on a bench boost, he's fine. If you don't have him, probably you avoid now because you just don't know what lineup he puts out. Pukki is getting, I don't even know how old he is. He looks old. So
that was random.
You never know. Yeah. I mean, Pukki age. I wouldn't go there. I wouldn't go there if unless you had him. But if you have Pukki, play him, and he's fine.
Also, just shout out to Pukki because he's so good. Yeah, he plays for Norwich, and they're getting relegated. But just as a footballer himself, he's super good. Super silky, and just a pure striker. So unfortunate that he gets relegated every time he comes to the Premier League.
Yeah, Pukki is 32, by the way. He's not that old, but he's fine. Okay, nothing else from Norwich. Let's move on to Arsenal. Arsenal are actually a very interesting one. A lot of people have a couple of Arsenal players. I myself have 3. I think we all agree that Saka is a keep. In fact, Saka is a good pick on the free hit as well. So nothing to do there. He's going to be well owned. There's no reason to go outside of him. Question is on Ramsdale. So some people are looking at a Ramsdale side transfer to a Schmeichel, for example. What do you think of that?
I just don't think you do that. First of all, I'm sure most people have a lot of value tied up in Ramsdale. How important is that value this late in the season? Questionable, but game week 37, he's got Newcastle followed by Everton, 2 great fixtures, and Leeds this game week plus Tottenham. It's just so risky, right? Like on a free hit, 36, Schmeichel, sure, is a great option and my go-to pick, but Leicester could easily allow goals in both games, and then you're looking at it as a really bad transfer. You're looking for the most optimal transfers at this part of the season where hits are incredibly valuable because you have very little time to make up for the hits. So is it an optimal transfer? I don't think so. I think it's a very risky sideways kind of move, possibly. Yeah.
Agreed. Do you want to put up that chart for the defensive data? Mm-hmm. So what we did was we looked at the XG conceded for all teams for over the last 10 game weeks, just to see that is there a trend for Arsenal actually underperforming compared to other teams, and this is there to see. Over the last 10 game weeks, I was actually surprised to see Aston Villa is 3rd, Crystal Palace is 4th, Newcastle is 5th. Of course, Liverpool and Man City are top 2, and then Arsenal are number 6. So actually, it's bad, but it's not that bad. In fact, they're above Chelsea for minutes per XG conceded. It's 83.6. So basically, they're conceding almost 1 XG in 83 minutes, which is actually okay. It's not too bad at all. And that tells me that, it may be okay to hold on to your Arsenal assets. The other thing about goalkeepers is goalkeepers have a low ceiling in general, because a lot of time we talk about bonus magnets and penalty saves and things like that. Unless there is evidence that this particular keeper has generated bonus over time, which, by the way, Ramsdale is one, there is no reason to switch, because you basically are talking 6 versus 2. And if you're going to spend a transfer, which is 4 points, to go from one to the other, you're basically taking away 1 clean sheet out of the double game week. So for me, I think you just hold Ramsdale now. It's too late in the season. Unless you're wildcarding, free hitting, you've made your bet with Ramsdale, you keep him, and it's not worth the switch. Even if you can go up to, Ederson and you had the money in the bank, it's a different story, because you basically get 2 nailed on clean sheets. But I wouldn't go there. So I think I generally agree with you.
Cool.
Okay, so coming back to Arsenal, then other burning questions. What if you have double defense? Would you switch out, like as an urgency? So if you have White and Ramsdale, and White also had a knockback.
No, I wouldn't. I think if White and Ramsdale, I don't mind keeping them because White is a very doable price point, unless you need the money. But Arsenal defense have been pretty good recently. I didn't watch the West Ham game in detail. I like the full game, but just saw some highlights, and I thought they were pretty decent defensively. Someone can correct me in the chat, but I've heard recently that Arsenal defense is coming back to form, so I don't think it's a bad shout keeping White for the rest of the season.
Yeah, fair enough. It's an upside play. If you had if Robertson's minutes were more assured, or if you didn't have a Cancelo, didn't have a Trent, and wanted to go there, I think those are the 2 defenders that could get you there and would be worth a transfer. But otherwise, maybe I agree with you.
I mean, maybe a White to Matip if possible, but yeah.
It's fine. We'll get to Liverpool and Matip in a second. Okay, Nketiah, we're obviously in a season where this is what it has come down to. We've got no strikers. Everyone is running with one fodder striker. Some have 2 fodder strikers. Now we're talking about a 3rd striker that is not fodder, but 5.5 million. He's recently started. He could have actually got more returns than he did. He was unlucky against Manchester United, for example, for not being involved. But historically, he's not been a guy who's typically involved in goals. So if he's enabling something, if he's enabling a KDB in your team by switching out, if he's doing something that helps, fine. If he's on a bench boost, fine. I spoke to a few Arsenal fans. Some think he'll play both games. Some actually think double game week will be the perfect time that Lacazette will be given 1 game, just so that he's kind of feeling back into the team. There was also some talk of Nketiah's contract being renewed and he wants more game time. So again, you can get your confirmation bias whichever way you want. He should see some minutes. He should probably start minimum one game. So I think it could be worth it in a place where there's really no other striker other than Richarlison, Pukki, the Watford guys. So we're really at the bottom of the barrel, scraping at the bottom of the barrel for players. So I think Nketiah is fine. What do you think?
The fact is he's a exciting pick in the potential perspective, but he hasn't done anything as an FPL asset thus far, and he's a punt in the end. Look, if he's I've seen him in a lot of free hits, by the way, because he's a good enabler to get to that KDB, Son plus Salah in the midfield. But are you excited about Nketiah? I don't think so. I mean, yeah, he had an offside goal ruled out, and he's very involved. But he's involved. He hasn't actually delivered. So I'm not so keen. I'm sorry, Arsenal fans. Like he's a good option for the future and good player for Arsenal, hopefully. But Lacazette lurking around. You just never know with guys like this. He could do really well this game week, and someone's probably going to clip this, but I'm not very keen on Nketiah as a priority transfer or optimal transfer.
Yeah. Okay, we agree. Last one on Arsenal, Martinelli. I think none of the Arsenal fans think he'll play twice, despite his start in the last game. Would he be worth playing over Kulusevski? I don't think so. I think you just go for X minutes. So for me, Martinelli, less of an option unless you're really desperate and have to play him. If you're on a bench boost, you just keep him.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think Kulusevski is a way better option this game week than Martinelli, even with those tough fixtures.
Okay, moving on to Villa, and I'm conscious we only have 20 minutes left, so we'll have to speed up a little bit. Villa, a lot of people went for Coutinho last game week. I think if you don't have a free hit in 37, you just have to, you just have to keep him in your team, because 37 is when you'll need him again. Whether you start him or not, question mark. I don't know. It really depends on the setup of the team. So some people are questioning if they should actually bench Coutinho this week. So Villa's fixtures are away to Burnley and home to Liverpool. Away to Burnley is good enough. I think Villa, obviously a good home team. So away form hasn't been great, but I think you just punt. I think it's fine to keep and play Watkins and Coutinho. They don't have the best double, but especially if you don't have a free hit in 37, you keep them.
Yeah, very important for 37, but definitely don't bench him if you have him. I mean, Coutinho also had his chances this game week, so the haul at home could come at any time.
Question is, if you do have a free hit and you did go Coutinho, would you move him to a Foden?
If you're free hitting at 36 and you had a Coutinho, would you move
free hitting in 37, so you don't actually need a Coutinho for that nice double game. Then you only have from Coutinho, you have Burnley away, Liverpool home, Man City away. Those are your 3 games that you get from Coutinho.
Yeah, very interesting. Who did they play in 38?
Man City away.
Oh, yeah. I think I'd move him on. Yeah, I agree.
I would as well. Mm-hmm. I would as well. So this was the main issue, which is why I didn't want to go Coutinho last game week. You would have, had he hauled, obviously it would have been worth it to go. But eventually, my fears were played out where he does not much. And then you kind of think that maybe they're better players for 36. Now, some people were on free hit 36, like, for example, Pranil. He is on free hit 36. So he wanted Coutinho against Norwich. He wanted Coutinho for the double game week in 37. Makes perfect sense. But for the people who are on free hit 37, like me, I was not so keen. So that was basically the thinking there. Liverpool, that's the team that we should spend some time on. So what do you think, Robbo versus Matip debate?
By the way, guys, if you could hit the like button, I got to do this mandatory thing. So it really helps the algorithm. So please do hit that like button. Matip is the much safer option for double game week 36. I don't think he even plays the FA Cup. Probably Konate plays the FA Cup. Butchered that pronunciation there. But if you're free hitting in 36, he definitely becomes a viable option. Robbo is risky that he might get one game because Tsimikas is a good player. I think he's an incredible backup option to Liverpool. With that being said, Robbo has been so crucial to Klopp and so important to Klopp. So his 9 minutes of rest in the Champions League yesterday might be enough rest for him to play both games. So as a Robbo owner, I'm kind of at the back of my mind, kind of hoping he gets both games. I think there's a chance he does, a good chance he does. So it's a tough one. It really is, because Robbo's attacking potential is unmatched, even right now, to maybe even better than TAA. So really tough call here. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I think so. By the way, firstly, a shout out to Anna Woodbury. She's on Twitter. What she does is she basically tracks the minutes of every single player for every single team in the Premier League. So what you can see is you can go back to her table, look for Liverpool, and you will see this very clear trend that Konate has been playing the FA Cup and he's been playing the Champions League. And basically, Matip's been the guy who's been playing the league. Mm-hmm. The only one he's missed was for an illness since like game week 24. So Matip is the Premier League guy. You'd expect him now to play the next two, Konate to come back for the FA Cup final, and then Matip to play again the next couple, and then Konate to play the Champions League final. This is very roughly a prediction for the minutes. So Matip is probably going to play twice. Robertson, my worry was he was looking a little bit leggy as well yesterday, even before the sub. I mean, usually he's a 90 minutes man. And now that we've seen that Klopp can bench Trent and Salah, he can bench anyone, right? So that's the main issue. Will he play twice? I don't know. Is he worth moving on? So I think free hitters will probably be swayed away, and I think maybe rightly so. But then the risk is the same one in game week 26. In game week 26, if you remember, Robertson didn't play the first game. Second game, he gets a 15-pointer. So if you went Matip, you'll probably get 12 points. Robertson can get that in one game. So is it worth a transfer? It's a question mark. I think if you don't have Robertson and you wanted a Liverpool third player, Matip is fine. It just doesn't fill me with excitement. Exactly. I mean, this is the best attack and the best defense from a statistical point of view in the last 10 game weeks. Liverpool, they're going into a double game week and you're going for a Matip when you can go Mane, you can go Robertson. There's like better players. And I think Diaz and Jota are not really in the conversation. They'll each play one. They could do well, but yeah.
And also, if you think about it, they're playing. They have a chance to get 4 cups or win 4 things this season.
Yeah.
You think Klopp's gonna rest Robbo in these crucial final few games?
He rested Salah away to Liverpool, man. I mean, none of us expected it. He did it. I'm not trying to scaremonger anyone. I actually own Robertson. It's not like I'm telling people not to go there because I have apprehensions myself. But it's a concern. We'll see what he has to say in the press conference on Friday. If Robertson comes up, if rotation comes up. But at the moment, if I was to put my money, I would say Robertson misses the Villa game. He plays Spurs.
I could see that.
He misses Villa, and then he plays the final.
Mm. Yeah, he can't. He's a machine, but he can't play everything. So I see the logic here, but tough call. Robbo can haul easily in one game.
And then Mane. So obviously, given that if Robbo isn't available, let's assume you're on a free hit and you're thinking Robbo isn't available, why not go for a Mane as your second big hitter over KDB? So let's say you go double Liverpool double City defense, Foden, and you have Salah and Mane and Trent. These are your 6 set from the 2 best teams. What do you think?
Yeah, I love it. I think Mane's been looking really, really sharp and really, really good, and he's back to his best. And he's also having an incredible season, right? Won the AFCON and unfortunately beat Salah to get to the World Cup, and he's been doing well. So I could see Mane as a very good differential shout, and obviously optimal, very high upside. So yeah.
Yeah, I like it. I was trying to do a free hit version with Mane and Laporte instead of Matip and KDB. I think it works. Nice. So it's worth thinking about. Okay, we're going to have to rush the last 10 minutes. So the teams that we didn't cover, Leeds, I think Raphinha is fine to play because his second game is against Chelsea, which will be heavily rotated. Wolves, don't even touch them. And that's it. Those are the 12 teams that we wanted to talk about. Should we go to our free hit draft?
Let's do it. Yep, we got 10 minutes exactly. I have yours down first, Pras.
Okay. So I'll talk. Should we just do one? Okay, we'll do one of yours as well. Fine. In my team, we've talked about Schmeichel. I think he'll be the go-to keeper. In defense, Trent. So who are the guys who are not going to move regardless of whose free hit draft you look at? Trent, Cancelo, Salah, Saka, Foden.
Agreed.
Or maybe not Foden, actually, not even that. Maybe Son. So therefore, I have gone for a 4 at the back here. Trent, Cancelo, Salah, Foden. Agreed.
Agreed.
Or maybe not Foden, actually, not even that. Maybe Son. So therefore, I have gone for a 4 at the back here. I have kept Alonso. I have kept Matip. I have actually 2 million in the bank in this draft, but I don't want to show off my team value. But I wanted to go Matip instead of Robertson here, just so that people who don't have the same team value can look at this draft, because I think you're secured with two games from Matip. So at a defensive Alonso, Matip, TAA, and Cancelo. In defense, I mentioned 3 budget enablers. So Tavares is one of them, Fofana is one of them, and Holgate. So I think out of them, Tavares, he's going to be on the bench anyway, but that's an option for people looking at sub 4.5 million for the double. In midfield, I think you have Salah, Saka, Son that pick themselves to an extent. And then I've got De Bruyne and Foden as the 2 City mids. And then up front, I've got Nketiah as the only lone forward who's basically bringing, spearheading the attack. So few variations here. You can go for Robertson and somehow downgrade a Foden to a Gordon. You can go for, like I mentioned, a Laporte in defense and Mane in attack. So basically you have a double City defense and Mane and Salah as the 2 premiums. You can go for Richarlison up front instead of a Foden. So, and go double City defense. So there's a few options. I think there's a pool of 15, 16 good players that you can look at. I'm happy to play Alonso here, by the way, because I wanted some Chelsea defense. I don't want to go against this scenario, because who do I think will definitely play in the FA Cup final? It'll be James. Will Alonso play? Probably. But who's most likely to play? It's James. So basically then I work backwards and I think then who's then more likely to play the 2 games? Probably Alonso. So that was the thinking with Alonso over James. Also a little bit on budget as well. So your thoughts?
No, I think no need to put anything else here, because I think the most important thing is to see the locked players and then the variations that can come. So I actually prepared 3 with variety, but it's very similar to yours in terms of the locked players. So I think by presenting it quickly, it might, and you can take a screenshot of it. Feel free to. So there's no one way to play the free hit, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So one of these drafts is this one, right? 2 City defenders with the KDB. Again, Schmeichel, we both agree on. Trent, we both agree on. Cancelo, Son, and Saka is in there. This one's a little different because it has Richarlison and Nketiah in there. But that is the reason for that is to cater for Son, Salah plus KDB without the Chelsea defense. So that's one variation. Another one is to have James in there, or it could be Alonso. And then you have the 2 City defenders, 2 Liverpool defenders, and then you have Foden, Son, Saka instead, still with Richarlison up top. And then I have one more, I believe, which is same thing. All 4 drafts has Schmeichel, has Trent, Cancelo, Son plus Saka, and then this one has Foden plus Jesus. So in the case that Jesus does get rested in the Champions League, this could be a viable free hit option as well with a Chelsea defender in there. And for me, all 3 have Richarlison as well. So why am I so keen on the Everton attacker? I have no idea, but there's just a lack of strikers to go for. So Richarlison can be downgraded to some bench fodder, and you could try to squeeze in another viable defender or midfielder. It's up to you. But basically, all free hit drafts are very similar in some sense. It's just what pattern or variation you want to go for.
Yeah. See, what I'm trying to solve for in my free hit draft is how can I get 3 Liverpool, 3 City, Saka, and Son. That basically is the 8 core.
Exactly.
And then Schmeichel in goal. That's 9. So you can find a couple of ways to getting there. This is why Richarlison wasn't the first guy in my team. Alonso wasn't the first guy in my team. Nketiah wasn't. These are guys that enable the first 9 that I talked about. So if you can find a way to get Richarlison, fine. But if you need a Nketiah to enable the triple City, triple Liverpool, Saka, Son, and Schmeichel draft, then that's the way you go. So that's basically the thinking.
And I also would like to put it out there, Pras, that all 4 of these drafts are pretty much very pragmatic template drafts with little bit of variation here and there. You could really go wild with it if you really want to, but I think this is not the week to actually do that because of the risk you carry not carrying these popular, great double game week players from good teams.
You captain Mane. You get Mane and you captain Mane as your third Liverpool if you're really chasing. If
you're chasing this week, it's all about captaincy, would you say?
I mean, in a double game week, captaincy will. I mean, they are big points on offer. You saw what James, even with one game, did in 28. Coutinho captaincy in 28 as well. It makes a big difference. But the larger the game week, the more difference it will make.
Because but we both agree that Salah's EO is going to be out the roof this game week, right?
150, 160.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's the risk.
He's not looking that great. He's not I mean, his stats are still there, but look, we cannot hide from the fact that he's just not being as free flowing. I was actually talking yesterday in the chat that I've been actually digging for data where I can prove that Salah, since Mane has moved to the middle, Salah has become less effective. It doesn't exist. He's still having the same underlying data, but the output hasn't been there. So I think, look, Salah is still, for me, the best captain option.
Also, a friend of mine on FPL Twitter, FPL Naif, is also saying the exact same thing you said, that Salah's role has changed drastically since Mane moved to the midfield, and he's just not as involved in the goals as much as he used to be. So very interesting observation here. Yeah. Okay.
All right. So we leave it at that. Quickly, bus teams.
Mm-hmm. I have my team here first. For the listeners, I have Ramsdale in goal, Cancelo, Laporte, Trent, Robertson, James. In the midfield, I have Son, Salah, Saka, Mount. And up top, I have Richarlison. And on the bench, basically nobody except the great Josh Brownhill, FPL legend, and the greatest player of all time. So this is my team. I have a very simple Mount to Foden transfer this week. And then I will be saving, or I have one free transfer, so that's what I'll be doing, keeping some money in the bank, and then hoping for the best. Free hitting in 37 is the plan for now. Yeah.
Good, nice and easy. I think you'll cover the three most popular City players. You'll have your Chelsea defender. You've got Salah. It's good. It's good.
Okay, Pras,
please Captain Salah, you said, right?
Captain Salah. Yep.
Okay. So I have the curse of two free hits as two free transfers, which is sometimes, often obviously very good, but it gives you so many options that right now I can't tell you exactly what I'm doing. Here's the defensive easy move, which is basically Havertz to Foden and James to Laporte. It's the easy move. I'll have, similar to you, the three most owned City players. I'll have the three big Liverpool players, also the most owned. I'll have Saka, Ramsdale is fine. And I'll have Kane. So I think that's the easy defensive move. I think I'm looking at two other moves, which is the Kane to Jesus and Havertz to KDB. So that would basically be the more riskier play where I go for a Jesus, I lose a Spurs player. Or I could look at an even more aggressive move, which is basically also taking Kulusevski up to Foden. So I could do that for a hit. I would go Kane to Richarlison, Havertz to KDB, Kulusevski to Foden. So that would give me Cancelo, KDB, and Foden. The last ultimate risky move is to take Robertson down to Matip and Havertz to KDB. I think I'll just be slightly short, so I'll need to take a hit for maybe downgrading Martinelli or Broha. But that would basically give me a Kane, KDB, and a Salah draft, still owning the defenders that I have, other than Robertson. So that would only be if Klopp really comes out and says that, look, Robbo looks leggy. Maybe he won't. So maybe I won't do that, but that's also an option.
What was your option two? Sorry, could you say that again?
Is basically the Kane to De Bruyne move. So you move from Kane, you downgrade him to Richarlison, you go Havertz to KDB.
And no extra hit, right?
I could, that would be without a hit, but I could then also take an additional hit to get a third City, which is Kulusevski to Foden. Or I could go Kane to Jesus, depending on Jesus's minutes today.
Yeah, so ideally, if Jesus doesn't play, you could do Kane to Jesus and Havertz to KDB as well, right?
Oof. Correct. If he doesn't play, that's 100% my
That's
move.
fire. Yep. Yeah. That's where I'd go to. I can predict what you're gonna do. Yeah.
Well, after tonight's game, I'll be very clear on what I'm doing. I just want to see the City guys.
All right, brother. That was a very fun episode.
Should we leave it there?
Yep. Thank you guys for joining us today, and please do hit the like button, subscribe to FF Scout. Have a great game week, and we will be back next week. So thank you guys.
Thank you.